always choose to thrive.
We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Is that going to be?
Throughout history, women have faced many challenges in their fight for equality. And as some countries make enormous advancements, others have failed, and inequality remains deep-rooted. There have certainly been some powerful women in modern history, from Margaret Thatcher to Indira Gandhi, Aung San Suu Kyi, and Angela Merkel. What legacy have they, or are they leaving behind? As women in all parts of the world still suffer violence, discrimination, and underrepresentation, what is the status of global gender equality? And how can progress be made? March 8th marks International Women's Day, but is it an occasion to celebrate or to protest? We find out more as we sit down with the woman in charge of promoting gender equality at the United Nations. Executive Director of UN Women, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, talks to Al Jazeera. UN Women Executive Director, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you for having me.
We're meeting in the middle of Women's Month, and we're coming up on International Women's Day. Is this a day to celebrate, a day to protest, a day to be an activist? What is it?
All of the above.
Why?
Because even though we've made progress, and it's important that we celebrate the achievements, but we also haven't come far enough. We have a lot of work that we still need to do, so we still need to be activists. But also some of the gains that we've had are being eroded, so we have to protest and defend. And there's misogyny and many other harmful and hurtful challenges that women still face, and because of that, protest is also in order.
The UN is unveiling a new initiative as we come on International Women's Day to try to quantify what the status of women and girls worldwide is. Why is this data initiative important?
Well, it's important to have data to disaggregate whenever we collect data so that we can see what's happening to boys and girls, what's happening to men and women, because in that way, when we take correctional action, we can be more measured, more purposeful, and we can take a correctional action that is highly informed, not guessing. But also this year, the theme of International Women's Day is about equality. Equality has to be measured. It's about building smart. We have to be clear, what is it that we have to be building for women? What kind of infrastructure works for women? So with data, we're able to be a bit more precise. And this theme, the theme for this year is also about being innovative. So in all of these areas, data is always important because it helps us to be accurate.
Does this mean revisiting how a policy is drafted? For example, physical accommodations for girls who are entering adolescence, building the kind of schools so that they can take care of their physical needs and also take care of their intellectual needs. Is it as simple as a recognition of that fact?
Yes, in some cases, it is about revisiting the way we make policies, the way we allocate money as treasuries in government. It is about also being able to see how many girls drop out of school. At what age do they drop out? Why do they drop out? If we don't collect the data, we will never know if girls actually do stay out of school when they are menstruating, and how many of them stay away, and the impact that has on their academic performance. If we are unable to provide evidence about this phenomena, sometimes when we raise the importance of sanitation in schools as a critical human right, people don't believe that it is this serious. But when you have data, then you are able to show the pattern. It means that when you build and you build, then you build smart. When you innovate, you make sure that you provide these services at school and at home, so that this right, which is about dignity as well, because sanitation is about dignity, is respected and is taken serious.
Is that part of the fundamental definition of feminism, recognizing the whole person?
Absolutely. Feminism is about respecting the rights of people of all sexualities, but more than anything else, being active in trying to correct and to address discrimination where it exists. This is not the responsibility of women alone. This is the responsibility of everyone who believes in equality. So feminism is not just about and for women. Feminism is about both men, women, and all other genders working together to make the situation better for everybody.
We hear so much about intersectionality, the recognition that feminism doesn't come out of one particular cultural, economic, racial, ethnic framework, that there are many feminisms. Is that what you have seen in your work as UN director, UN Women Director?
Sometimes, but I also have to say more and more policymakers recognize intersectionality. It's not always been like that. So it's helpful that more and more activists articulate this very clearly, and more policymakers are embracing that, because to be a feminist, you must care about the whole woman for the full cycle of her life, but also the different aspects of the woman's life. So you can't be a feminist and be homophobic, be a feminist and not care about disability, be a feminist and be indifferent to issues of violence against women. You have to care about the whole human being and everything that affects the women. You can't be a feminist and be a racist. You have to be the full package.
Is there a need to tailor feminism based on the local culture, based on where a patriarchal way of running society has been predominant? How do you tailor policy when the patriarchy has really been the fundamental power source?
Patriarchy is bad for everybody. So we need to rage about the impact and the effects of patriarchy in every society. The way in which we fight it in different contexts obviously can take different forms and shape, but the starting point is that we have to be clear. Violence against a girl and a woman anywhere in the world, whatever political system they live in, is bad. We have to say everywhere, discriminating against women and girls in any society, denying them the right to education, denying them the right to work, is bad in any society. So we must not accept any explanation that suggests that there are some people who have a higher threshold for pain. Women in particular cultures can tolerate a bit of oppression more than women in other senses. When a woman is raped, whether she is raped in Helsinki or in Johannesburg or in Bujumbura, the hurt and the pain is the same. And we need to accord them the same decency, and we need to be concerned for all the women, whoever they are and wherever they are.
And it's worth pointing out that just this week, the Interparliamentary Union says that the percentage of women in national legislatures around the world has gone up by 1% to just about 24%. A slow increase, but an increase nonetheless. Does it make a difference when women hold political power?
Yes, it does make a difference, but it makes a bigger difference if the numbers are significant. We need a critical mass. We have not reached the critical mass across the world that would ensure that you actually swing the pendulum decisively. We are going the right way in some situations. We are going the right way in particular because of activism of ordinary people trying to hold their leaders accountable. But we need people to vote for women when elections come, because the fact that we do not have enough women in positions of authority, it is because we do not elect women. And sometimes when women make themselves available to be elected, there's a lot of pressure and violence, which sometimes discourage women. But nevertheless, you still see women in every election in many countries making themselves available to be elected. So we also need to encourage society to recognize that if we don't change the look and feel of politics, the look and feel of the security institution, we will not be able to have an inclusive security force, an inclusive parliament that can look after the interests of everybody, that will be able to address issues from different perspectives. If we continue to allow these institutions to be predominantly led by men, we are denying ourselves the richness of the contribution that can come from women. And I'm not saying that all women are perfect, that they will make the right decision, but an increase of women means that we give us a chance to have more women that will stand for other women. But also we need to engage the majority of the men who are there, so that amongst them we can have those that are concerned about broader society encouraged to stand up and to also lead from the front.
You talk about women putting themselves out there and encountering pushback, or in some cases violence. I'm thinking of the Saudi women drivers who've been pushing for more equality and a very mundane skill that you and I take for granted. Women campaigning for stronger domestic violence laws in Russia and finding themselves imprisoned. Wouldn't it be easier to say, oh my gosh, I don't want to go to prison. I'll just put up with the status quo. Can we accept that?
No, the truth of the matter is that societies only change because some people believe in a purpose that is bigger than them, and they put themselves out there to make the changes. We continue to need people like that in our societies. We also need young people also to be initiated into activism, so that they too are able to take a stand and to fight for the rights of their communities and to save their own future.
And you yourself have done it. You have been a legislator. You were deputy president of South Africa. You know what the pressure is and what the responsibility people place on you when you serve.
Yeah,
what was gratifying about that?
You know, I think the important thing about making yourself a public representative is to know that you are not there for yourself. You are not there, you are there in order to serve. So you have to gauge your success by the number of people whose lives are changing because of the work that you do. You also need to understand that for that kind of a job, no one has to thank you. It is a thankless job. You have to keep on trying, even if there aren't people who are there cheering you. You also need to know that it is not about self-enrichment. Very important. It is lonely. It is a life of sacrifice, but it is very gratifying. And in many of these official posts that we undertake, the institutions actually provide you with enough platform and support to live a decent life. So for so much, for people that so much is being given, much more is expected so that you can serve people who have much less than what you have. And knowing that you are not there for yourself, that being a public service is not being a public master, you're actually there to serve, always has to be paramount. And I think as leaders, we really have to lead by example. It is not as difficult as we sometimes make it to be. It can be done.
How important is it to have women such as Cory Aquino, Indira Gandhi, Angela Merkel, Theresa May running a country? What message does that send to all of society?
Well, it tells especially girls that this job can be done by someone who looks like me. This job can be done by a girl. There is a story, I don't know if it's true, but it's interesting, never the same, where boys were asked in Germany if they would want to be a head of state. And one boy says, well, no, in Germany, you can't be a head of state. Only girls can be heads of state. Because for the time that 7-year-old had lived, they only knew one person who was a head of state, and it was Angela Merkel, and it was a woman. So that began to shape how he sees this role. Can you imagine how many roles are there in society where girls never see women or girls in those positions, and how that must shape the way girls aspire and choose their careers? The diversity and the presence of men and women in positions of authority sends a message to boys and girls that this is for you too. We are actually even challenging private sector and the marketing and advertising industry to ensure that we have got, we change the stereotypes in marketing and advertising. We have companies that have come together and are partnering with us, and we have formed the Unstereotype Alliance. And our focus is to change the way the marketing and advertising industry projects both men and women in the best interest of creating a society where everyone can be affirmed.
But isn't that a problem? Isn't that easy for companies to do when 3% of the biggest US corporations are run by women, that women get to middle-level professional status but can't seem to get into that upper echelon? Shouldn't the pressure be there as well to keep women
absolutely.
As they're hitting their stride professionally?
So, no, we have to take and do everything. We have to get them to project to society through their marketing and advertising. We have to engage directly with shareholders, with CEOs to change their boards. One of the campaigns that we are pushing forward as UN Women is 50-50 representation of men and women in corporate boards. Because next year we are going to be 25 years after the adoption. It's going to be 25 years after the adoption of the Beijing Platform, which is one of the most comprehensive agreements that exists amongst nations for supporting gender equality. And the fact that we're still talking about such dismal numbers in the representation of women means that we actually have to be very direct about increasing the representation of women in boards. I saw that even the churches now are calling for diversity in board. These are real desperate times. We only have 10 countries in the world with cabinets that are a 50-50 representation. 10. I mean, choosing and putting together a cabinet is the prerogative of a prime minister and a president. You don't have to go to elections about it, which is a much more complex activity. So surely when you become a president and you have this amount of power, it should be possible to consider using that one power and authority that you have to change society by bringing in the strong, the extraordinary women of your country to be in leadership, and through them begin to change the way society perceives women. That too is one of our campaigns. We need 50-50 cabinets in many more countries than we have now, and we need 50-50 boards in many countries than we have now. But I also have to highlight the fact that we want this change at the top, but we also need to look at change at the bottom, so that we also change things for those women who may never sit in boards, who may never be in cabinets. So that is why things like minimum wage is important because it's for those women who are at the bottom of the pyramid. That is why policies that support the women in the informal sector, social protection, in order to make sure that women in the informal sector have maternity leave, have access to pensions, have access to healthcare services, because for them, these are just the basic things that make them live from one day to the other. So we need a bottom-up as well as a top-down approach.
What is the future of gender equality, and what is UN Women doing to make that happen? Is there something out of the box coming?
Yeah, UN Women needs everybody because we are a catalyst for change. We have a mandate given to us by member states to push them to bring about changes. One way in which we are using this mandate is to push for the end of all discriminatory laws in every country. So right now, we are focusing at specific countries where the laws are devastating to women and engaging with the countries to bring about changes in those countries. I have to say, I'm thankful that there are a number of countries that are willing to bring about changes, but also there are countries where it is actually quite difficult, where sometimes we even see a reversal of the gains that were already made. We are also pushing for countries who already have many good laws to implement the good laws, because it takes a lot to pass a law. It's a devastating disappointment when the laws are being passed. We are also collaborating and partnering with a private sector, for private sector to take on the responsibility of addressing the issue of unequal pay, because more money for women who sell their labor just as everybody else, doing the same amount of work as men, and then ending up with less money in their pockets. That's an injustice. So we are engaging directly with the private sector. We have a coalition which involves member states, private sector, civil society, human rights activists, labor unions to call for this change to happen. We are also actively involved in addressing the issue of financial inclusion and the use of technology in order to make sure that we can bring about services such as mobile money to women in every part of the world. Because right now, 2/3 of people in the world have access to mobile technology and connectivity. That's a lot of people, but the number of people who are getting better services as a result of connectivity does not add up. With mobile connectivity, and we're pushing for that, we're working with partners in that regard, because with mobile connectivity, for instance, you can improve the quality of health, you can provide mobile money, as I've indicated, you can improve access to education, you can reduce the number of traveling that people in rural and isolated areas have to take in order for them to access services. We need to make sure that we influence the way the infrastructure is used. We need to influence the way innovation directs itself, so that it is innovation that wants to solve problems. We have a lot of innovation, but we can't have more innovation, which is about us taking pictures of ourselves. We need innovation to address poverty. We need innovation to address access to energy, access to water. It is possible. The technology exists now. We need the will, the political will to do it, and we need foresight also in the private sector to recognize that it is important to make these investments today, because these are future customers. If you get it right for them, you get it right for yourself.
We'll leave it there. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, thank you so much for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you very much for having us. We look forward to coming back again.
Thank you.
Thank you.